This episode this week, guys. The name on the marquee has got to be Bobby King Green, who this past weekend, Saturday, October 7th, at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the main event of UFC Fight Night, defeated Grant Dawson by knockout. The official time, get this, 33 seconds of the very first round. Oh my goodness. What an exclamation point from Bobby Green. Mark, start us off here. Give us your take on this very impressive, very quick fight from Bobby Green.
Bobby King Green. So happy for this man. He finally gets his main event spot, and he delivers in spades. Could not have scripted it any better. Huge underdog going in. Fighting a guy who's undefeated in the UFC, has one loss in his whole career, and he puts him out in a matter of seconds. I mean, it was beautiful. It was typical Bobby Green. His movement, the fluidity of his stance, the hands-down approach, it kind of all came together in this one shot where he had kind of just changed stances. It was a short, straight left that put Grant Dawson down. The follow-up obviously put him out, and Bobby Green has the biggest performance of his entire, I don't know if storied is the right word. That's what I was going to say, but certainly long career. Definitely a bitter pill to swallow for Grant Dawson. He was getting his push. He had made it to the main event scene. Obviously, he was the big favorite going into the fight. He's the guy getting hyped. I'm sure he feels like if he got to run that back, it could go much differently, and that he just got caught. And he may not be wrong, but that's why MMA is the best sport in the world, because you can get that type of matchup, and Bobby Green can step in there and do what he did. So that was fantastic. I do wish he called out Max Holloway. He was talking about fighting him pre-fight, about the idea of having Max come up to 155 and just see who's the better boxer. And I wish he threw it out there, because he had a huge moment on the mic, and if he was ever going to call out a big name like that, who maybe he shouldn't necessarily be fighting, that was the moment to do it. So I wish he did. I know that sounds like a mismatch name-wise, but to see those two box would be fantastic. But he didn't. But either way, huge night for Bobby Green, and I'm excited to see where he goes from here.
Omar, Bobby Green hands Grant Dawson only the second loss of his career, the second knockout of his career, which is also only the second loss of his entire career. What do you make of this emphatic win by Bobby King Green?
I thought it was obviously a great performance from Bobby Green. I don't really know how much I want to take away from it from the Grant Dawson side, right? There wasn't really that much of a fight. It was very quick. Grant Dawson got caught. To Bobby Green's credit, the switching of the stances, making that lead hand his rear hand, and then shooting it off completely, putting a little bit more power and hip movement behind it. It didn't really look like much on camera, but it caught him right in the chin, and it was a rear hand by the time it threw. It was no longer the jab hand. So it was beautifully done by Bobby Green. It really was. But there wasn't a lot of fight there, right? So it's difficult to know what to make of it from the Grant Dawson perspective. There are things about that, the way he reacted to the punch and sort of the turtling immediately and things like that. Maybe the punch was worse than even it seemed, even to me. But I guess I expected a little bit more fight back. You know what I mean? A little bit more struggle from Grant Dawson. Mm-hmm. But he turtled up relatively quickly right after that shot. So it must have been a solid one from Bobby Green. He does, 4-ounce gloves make a difference. So, great performance from Bobby Green. Really excited to see where he goes from here. He's got some really good momentum in this later half of his career.
When Bobby Green puts it all together, and when his stand-up is shining, he looks like he could beat anybody at lightweight, or he could at least hang and be in there with anybody.
Yeah,
and he's exciting, man. He's like us, like a dark horse for like the division's most exciting guy.
Yeah, dude, we say this all the time about him, but his record could be so much different. Like I'm just scrolling back through it now. Obviously, Dober and Islam beat him truly and cleanly, but Fiziev was a close competitive fight. Moises, I thought he beat, and that's a loss on his record. Trinaldo, I remember, I think I thought he or at least that one was very close. Your car close. I remember thinking he might have won that fight. Like, there's a lot of losses on this man's record that could have very easily been wins. So he has always been able to hang with these guys. He just, I think, it might have been DC said this on the broadcast, like that he always gets these chances where it's like we could finally have the Bobby Green breakthrough, and it just, for one reason or another, it doesn't happen, and it finally did.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about where Bobby Green goes from here potentially. Mark, you alluded to the fact that he missed a potential great shot, call out of Max Holloway in the cage, although I think Max might have some plans now that everything is in flux.
Oh, does he? I don't know this. What does he have?
Omar,
can we share this? Does it have to wait for the sphere?
Does he have something? Do I have something?
Oh, Mike knows breaking news.
All
what
of
is
the
it?
mix-up. I saw it on the internet.
Oh,
So
we
it must
talked
be
about this a while ago, actually. Yeah, he's with Josh Emmett for Orlando in UFC.
What?
What?
Max Holloway.
He's with Josh Emmett.
Fighting Josh
He's
Emmett?
fighting Josh Emmett for UFC Orlando.
When did that get announced? That's gross.
I saw
September 13th. Or around that time.
No, I saw.
No, dude, he doesn't have a fight booked. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, here we go. Because of the reshuffle, because Volk is fighting Islam now. Volk was going to be fighting.
Oh, Topuria?
So now
Yeah.
Max is fighting Topuria for the interim belt.
No,
Oh,
that's only if
that's-
Volk loses.
That's only if
That's what-
Volk loses?
That's what broke today. Yeah.
Oh, that's only if Volk loses? I thought
If-
that was made.
Well, that doesn't make
So
any
what
sense.
what Ariel broke today was that what he's hearing is that the plan will be if Volk wins and is relatively unhurt, he will still fight Topuria. But that if Volk loses, then Topuria will fight Max for an interim title.
Oh, my bad. I thought that was like announced in like the new plan because everything's getting reshuffled.
Yeah. But that did break today, so I wasn't really factoring that into the fact that over the weekend I was hoping for the Max call out. But yes. But anyway, to go back and answer your question that you were posing there, dream fight talk aside, the more realistic one that I also love, that I keep seeing thrown out, and I've even heard Bobby Green mention now, is the idea of fighting Dan Hooker. And I think that is a fantastic fight in and of itself, and another one I'd love to see. And Hooker, I believe, actually commented on it as well and said he's interested, so sign me up for that one.
Omar, any other ideas for Bobby King?
No, I would agree. Dan Hooker was talking about it. He was talking about doing it in December. Or I guess they were talking about doing it in December, which would be a relatively quick turnaround, which I love, and get one in before the year's end.
Real quick, I know just from glancing at it. Obviously, he fought Makhachev, who's all the way up at the top with the belt. I know that Bobby Green fought and lost to Poirier. I'm trying to look at the rankings for lightweight. Who else has he fought at lightweight in the rankings?
It's in the top.
That's in the
Fiziev.
rankings. So he lost to Fiziev.
That would be it
That's right.
Yeah.
in terms of ranked
He
fighters.
fought Dober. He lost to Dober.
Dober's not ranked, though.
Oh, he's still not ranked?
No.
No.
God, I love fucking Drew Dober.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I mean, Bobby Green, like I was alluding to before, such a great matchup for so many guys. And aside from 3 guys in the top 15, there's a lot of potential matchups for him
Yep.
now that he's kind of cracked into more and more sort of a primetime spot here. Let's talk quickly about Grant Dawson. As I said before, Bobby Green hands him only the second loss of his entire career. His record now falls to an abysmal 20-2. Omar, what do you think could be next for Grant Dawson?
I mean, so I think the UFC has him officially now at 15, so he's still within that top 15. So it wouldn't. I would still want to see him fight somebody in the top 15. The problem is they have Bobby Green ranked at number 13. So short of giving him Matt Frivola, I think again, right? Because they've already fought, I believe.
They haven't fought, but Frivola's booked against Benoit Saint-Denis.
Which wouldn't be. You know what? Let's go with that. The win, maybe the loser of Frivola and Saint-Denis. Probably a good fight.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
Anything
similar
else you
vein
guys?
for me.
Yeah,
I think that you put him back in there against another dangerous guy. You know, like as good as his record
totally.
is, if you put the Ismagulov win aside, there's not a ton of big names on there as great as Dawson has looked. So I think you get him in there against another dangerous high level dude and kind of try to see what we do have in Grant Dawson after he fell so flat in this one. So I am going to go with Jalen Turner for that reason.
Okay. Let's move on to the co-main event of this past UFC fight night in the middleweight division. A scrap between Joe Pyfer and Abdul Razak Alhassan, and Joe Pyfer comes out the victor, finishing Alhassan in the second round. The official time 2:05 of round number 2. Omar, start us off. Joe Pyfer looked big, got the big win. What are your thoughts in the aftermath?
Joe Pyfer looked gigantic, absolutely gigantic in there. Alhassan did his best, I think, to try to manage the distance and manage the striking as much as he could, because I think that was really the area that he had the most, obviously the most success in when it comes to winning that fight. I was listening to an interview that he was giving with Kenny Florian and John Anik, and he was talking about how Alhassan got him with a couple good calf kicks that had him a little fucked up, and he was like, I was trying to knock him out, but he got me with a few of those kicks, and I was like, fuck this, and he went for a takedown and, you know, did what he knew he could do, which obviously leads me to believe he was probably playing with his food at that point, right? Trying to do something that he didn't necessarily need to do, not necessarily taking the easiest route to victory from the beginning of the fight, trying to show off a little bit. And I'm just concerned that that's something later on in his career, as he's trying to rise up the ladder, that he's going to fuck around and find out. You know what I mean? But it sounds like 185 might be a good place for him just because he seems to be a much bigger guy. He says he has trouble making 185, so I don't think we'll see him there for long. At some point, he's probably going to be he's probably going to be a 205 pounder probably in the near future, I would imagine. But he says he basically dies to get to 185.
That definitely takes away a little bit of what makes him so interesting as a middleweight. It's just the size and strength that he has, and at 205, that's a bit more ordinary.
Yeah. His skill, though, especially his wrestling specifically and his jiu-jitsu, I think that does separate him even at light heavyweight.
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying one of his current advantages sort of goes away a bit. But no, he's good. Were you done? I'll just take it from here.
Oh, yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Hop in, man.
But yeah, he's a scary man. His athletic and natural gifts are many, and I'm not sure that he won't get exposed technique-wise at a certain point. I don't know yet how buttoned up I feel that his technique is. I don't feel like he's had the appropriate matchups for us to 100% be able to make that read. But either way, it's starting to feel like it may take some top guys to be able to expose that, because he is looking like the real deal, like a dangerous fighter who will walk you down and can finish you in a lot of ways. And that's what he did here. He showed off the hands. You know, Alhassan wasn't having an easy time on the feet at all. He couldn't get off. He even said it in his corner that he felt like he couldn't get off. And then as soon as he started landing the calf kicks, you saw Pyfer was able to just go to the wrestling, and the takedown that finished it was an enormous slam, and then he just seamlessly moves into the arm triangle choke, and he puts Alhassan out. So that's a hell of a statement from him in a big co-main event spot with the spotlight on him. He maximizes the mic time as well. Big night for Joe Pyfer.
Absolutely, man. I mean, the height disparity between him and Alhassan, I think, played a role, like optically, into him looking like such a huge middleweight. I know he's listed at only 6'1". So there are other middleweights that are absolutely going to sort of be eye to eye with him. But he looks like a giant 6'1". He's a giant jacked man. And he's got a lot of skills, man. And he put it all together against Alhassan. In the first round, I think he was definitely getting the better of the hands. In the second round, Alhassan was starting to mount a little bit of a comeback, starting to build his own momentum. And Pyfer was like, all right, I'm going to take you down. And he took him right down, like you said, with a huge slam, right into the submission. Very, very impressive stuff across the board from Joseph Body Bags Pyfer. With that being said, now he improves to 12-2 as a pro. Only one of his wins has gone to the scorecards, and that was very early in his career when he fought one time for CES in the Northeast. He's a finisher, guys. Omar, what would you do next at middleweight with Joe Pyfer?
Where are we putting this man when it comes to the rankings? Mark, what do you have him at the rankings now?
I shall share with you. I have him at number 23.
Oh, damn.
He's knocking on the door. He's knocking on the door.
Yeah, the Mearshart win, that's a pretty quality win.
Yeah.
That kind of jumps you past that middle of the pack at middleweight.
For sure.
I mean, do we want to keep moving him up? Do we want to give him somebody like Fluffy, who I feel like because Fluffy just pulled out of something, so he's not booked currently.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, because Joe, and he also said, I did remember from this interview that he's not fighting until 2024. He's not cutting all that weight again before the end of the year. So
Pyfer said that?
Yeah. So we could see Fluffy and Pyfer fight in early 2024.
I hope Fluffy gets a ranked opponent. I feel like he's already earned that.
Yeah.
But it could happen, and it's not a bad fight. But I'll go, I guess, similar guy in a similar area. I think he actually just lost to Fluffy. Now that I'm thinking about it, but I'll go with Edmund Shabazian. I do think that you could argue Pyfer already deserves a ranked opponent, but I'm going to go one more before pulling that trigger, and I think Edmund is a guy who could maybe show us a little more of what happens when he's in there with someone with some higher level technique.
It's a great matchup. I do agree. I think that I want to see Anthony Hernandez get a big shot.
Yeah,
because he's so good. Oh my God, Joe Pyfer, to me, he strikes me as more of you're kind of and I don't mean this as any kind of detraction, more of a typical middleweight. Like middleweight to me is the weight class where you start to see guys as big dudes who throw bombs, and Anthony Hernandez to me is a very interesting middleweight because I don't conceptually think of him as a middleweight. To me, he fights almost like a welterweight.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I agree,
know what I mean?
actually. Yeah,
I get that.
He's more skill. Like he's not like a Joe Pyfer or like there's a handful of guys that you could name that are like jacked 185ers who are gonna fucking knock you out.
Yeah, he's not a physically imposing man. He is, as one would say, a very fluffy.
Yes. Except not anymore.
Except not Fluffy, yeah.
It's a little fluff, mini fluff, light fluff.
He probably earned that nickname when he joined a gym, joined his gym and started training, and they called him Fluffy. But he's in great shape now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
He's not Joe Pyfer cut
very
though.
Good guess.
It's not fucking chiseled from USDA prime beef.
No, not many are that.
And now that there's no more USADA, spoiler alert for the Sphere.
Yeah, Jesus.
Everybody's about to get a whole lot more juiced up, bro.
It can't be that it's just going away. It has to be that they already have some deal in place with some other company. They're not just fucking turning back to the wild, wild west here.
We're not going to get into it right this second, but it sounds like the McGregor thing really pissed everybody off. Both sides.
Yeah, that was definitely a tipping point.
So I don't think they got anything really lined up just yet. I think they're kind of pissing in the wind, and they have till January 1st basically to get something in place.
Well, it could be that.
Yikes.
When was UFC 200? Were they working with USADA for 200?
They were. They had the exemption for Lesnar. That was the big hullabaloo.
Because I'm like, if they're pissed off about McGregor, they had to have been pissed off about Brock.
It's very possible that's why they're not doing it for McGregor, because they did it for Brock.
Yeah.
The whole thing is just so...
It all adds up. Do we want to say anything...
No, we'll save it. We'll save it for the Sphere.
We will save it because that's literally all I have. Because I know we want to
real quick. Yeah, real quick. Do we want to say anything about Abdul Razak Alhassan's potential next opponent, or you guys want to move on?
I wrote a name down. I'll throw it out quick. Julian Marquez. I think that is a banger.
I don't hate that.
Yeah, that is. I like that. Like that a lot.
I feel like Tresean Gore has a fight coming up soon. So if he wins that fight, I think that'd be the way to go.
Okay. Let's talk now. Speaking of middleweights who look like welterweights, let's talk about a middleweight who became a welterweight in Joaquin Buckley and his unanimous decision victory over Alex Morono. The scorecards read 30-27, 30-27, and a 30-26, all for Joaquin Buckley. Mark, start us off this time. Give us your thoughts on Buckley's performance over the always game and always tough and always talented Alex Morono.
Yeah, that is a big statement performance for Joaquin Buckley. You know, we haven't seen anybody handle Alex Morono like that in a long, long time. And I feel pretty good about my read on this fight because I think it really was the speed and the athleticism that ended up being the differentiator here.
Yep.
You know, Morono had a really hard time finding Joaquin in there for long portions of that fight, especially with anything that was too clean. And it did take Buckley a bit to get Morono's timing down and to find the openings in his defenses, but he did. And his cardio was also an X factor in doing it, which you love to see because he was as fresh in round 3 as he was in round 1, and round 3 is the round where he really showed out. He got inside more. He started to hurt Morono, and Morono takes him down, and for a second you're like, oh, man, like, is Buckley stuck down here? And he pops right up, which tells you a lot about where he's at cardio-wise, skill improvement-wise, everything. And it looked like at that point Morono was just mentally broken that he thought he had, turned the tide, and then Buckley popped right up. And from that point on, it was the Buckley show for those final couple minutes in there. And Morono did survive to see the bell. He's a real tough dude. We know this. But, yeah, that was the Joaquin Buckley show in the end of that fight. He looked fantastic, and I am intrigued to see how far he can take it at welterweight.
Omar?
Yeah, man, his shots look heavy in there. He was doing I don't want to say cocking back because he wasn't really like so far out, but he was definitely like loading up hard for a lot of those straight shots. And Alex was just kind of moving back a little bit too much there. He wasn't cutting enough angles, I don't think. And it just gave Buckley a little too many. It gave him too many targets to hit that were just so straight on, and they didn't vary, I think, enough. But I think the power got to Moreno, and I'm not surprised, right? The power from Buckley looks absolutely ridiculous, and the athleticism was 100% apparent, especially when you compare the two and you juxtapose the two, right? Next to each other, it's a glaring difference, the athleticism between one and the other. So it's a great performance from Buckley, man. Really, really good, and I think it sets him up nicely for another fight.
For a guy who carries as much muscle as Joaquin Buckley does, if he can make 170 in a healthy and sustainable way, dude is a real nightmare at welterweight. And can't wait to see what's next for him. Let's talk about it. Mark, you got a name for Mr. Joaquin Buckley at welterweight? Who do you want to see him match up with next?
Yeah, I know it's only been a couple fights here, but that was an impressive win, and I think he deserves his shot. A couple fights at welterweight, I mean, obviously. I think he deserves his shot to kind of break through. I'm going to give him a proven vet and say Santiago Ponzinibbio, who is another guy that recently beat Morono. And if that can't work, I'm even willing to go as far as saying Neil Magny.
Ooh, wow. Neil Magny. That would be very interesting. Omar, any other thoughts on that?
So Santiago Ponzinibbio was the name that I had picked out. But I'd probably go towards the Gunnar Nelsons. I think Neil Magny's still a little too up there, I think, right now for Buckley, at least in my opinion, at least for now. But I think you can get through somebody like Gunnar Nelson in that stage, and I think you can give him somebody towards the low end of the top 15.
Okay. You guys have anything to say about Morono? Do Morono. He's the best.
Yeah, I wrote a name for all the losers here, so I'll give it to you. I don't know that he'll love it. He's been getting to fight some real names lately. This is not necessarily that, but I will say Carlston Harris. He is 4-1 though in the UFC. His only loss in the UFC is to Shavkat. He has looked good. I think he deserves an opponent like a Morono. And Morono has lost a couple recently. So, I mean, not in a row, but, 2 out of 3 I think it is for him. So, I think he's got to try to turn back a guy like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually had Alesi Zaleski, I believe that is a Dos Santos, in there somewhere. Yeah. Yes.
My boy. Does he not have a fight? Does he ever get booked in fights? I swear.
Didn't he just fight?
They just want to wait until he's fucking 80 years old because they're afraid he'll beat everyone.
I thought he just fought.
Oh, he's fighting Renat. That's what they did. Rude. Yeah, I hate it.
Oh, it was June. Fuck, why does that feel like that shit like just happened?
I think because we were just talking about how they booked him against Renat.
Maybe, yeah. All right, well, maybe give him... Where the fuck are they at? Give him the winner. The winner of that fight. Oh, maybe the loser. The loser probably makes more sense. Renat is way up there.
Yeah, probably. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, man. Let's moving right along here. In the lightweight division again, Drew Dober gets another impressive Drew Dober victory by defeating Ricky Glenn in the very first round by TKO. The official time 2:36 of round number 1. Omar, start us off with this one. What are your thoughts of Drew Dober getting another knockout victory?
You guys have seen Old School, right? Way back when.
Oh my God, forever ago. But yes, of course.
It's my fucking boy, Blue. Drew Dober is my fucking boy, man. I love me some Drew Dober, man. First of all, super happy that I think is he finally ranked? No.
Nope.
No, we just talked about it, yeah.
Which is dumb because he just knocked out Bobby Green. So if you're going to rank Bobby Green, he's ranked in the Mark rankings.
Kills
This is
me,
why
dog.
you need to work for the UFC. You need to be their matchmaker.
He's great, though, man. And I definitely think he deserves to get, a top 15 guy in there. But as far as the fight is concerned, I mean, the dude is tight, man. His skill and his technique is very, very tight. You can see him continuing to sharpen up. He's not flashy. He's not a guy that's going to, like, throw 360 crazy shit and do the Bobby Green kind of style and things like that. He's not a very flashy guy, but he's very, very efficient with the fundamentals, very good with it. His timing and his IQ in there is very, very good. And he looks like he hits like a fucking truck. So, like I said, I love me some Drew Dober. Ricky Glenn looked a little out of his league in there, if we're being honest. I don't know if that's... I don't know. I thought it would be a little bit more of a competitive fight in there than it seemed like it was being and ended up being. But a beautiful performance from Drew Dober.
Mark?
My number 1, 2, and 3 takeaway from this fight is that Ricky Glenn ate way too many shots.
Sure.
I don't know what the fuck we are doing, honestly, letting that man eat that many shots. Aside from that, I thought he looked really bad. I thought he looked slow and stiff and old, frankly. So I don't know when that happened. I don't remember if I thought that in his last fight, but I thought it in this fight from the opening bell. So I don't know that I love him continuing to fight, at least not against the Drew Dobers of the world, if we're going to keep going here. But Drew looked fantastic. That was everything that makes Drew great. The striking at all different levels, body shots right out of the gate, kicking the legs, obviously lighting up Ricky Glenn to the head, stayed composed through it all. He didn't force it, which is what bit him in the ass against Matt Favola. He stayed defensively responsible, and that is how Drew Dober wins a fight. So he did a great job to bounce right back and make a statement with a dominant performance after he took that loss.
Yeah, man. Omar, who should Drew Dober fight next at lightweight?
So, like, you want to give him a top 15 guy, right? You want to hopefully move him up in the rankings. I feel like we just talked about Grant Dawson. I gave Grant Dawson another name, but now that I'm looking at it, I don't know. I kind of like that matchup, man. I think that's a good opportunity for Drew Dober. I think Grant Dawson losing the way that he did to Bobby Green, I think there is a little bit of stop in that momentum that he's been having in the UFC so far, and I think Drew Dober's had some nice momentum as of recent, with the exception of that Matt Favola loss. But he's looked, I mean, even in that fight, he looked pretty good until he got fucked up. So I think I'm going in that direction. Grant Dawson.
Like it, Mark?
Yeah, I like that too. For my Dawson matchup, I had said Jalen Turner. For Drew Dober, I was I am going to go with Renato Moicano. I hate to give one of them a loss right now, but I just feel like that matchup makes a lot of sense. But the reason I go back to the Dawson Turner thing is because I almost feel like those four guys could match up in any way, and it makes sense. I feel like that's like a little bucket right now.
Yeah.
So that's what I would like to see shake out here one way or the other.
Cool. Anything you guys want to say about Ricky Glenn or no?
Yeah, I put down Nasrat Hakparast.
Ooh.
Feel like they're at very similar levels. Hakparast is maybe a bit less of a KO threat after seeing the way Ricky Glenn just looked, so we'll see if he can potentially bounce back against a guy like that and gives Hakparast a chance to keep working his way up.
Okay. Let's now, unless Omar, you have anything to say about Mr. Glenn?
Nope. Good.
Okay. In the featherweight division, opening up the main card of this UFC Fight Night, Bill Algeo gets the win over Alexander Hernandez by unanimous decision. Shutout on the scorecards. All three judges gave it to Algeo 30-27. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your thoughts of Bill Algeo getting the dub.
Algeo is a motherfucker, man. That fight was ridiculous. I mean, there's so much that happened in that fight, right? I mean, even everything from that eye poke that wasn't an eye poke just because the thumb's knuckle went into this man's eye. I mean, he was getting lit up left and right in that fight. And so Alexander Hernandez's credit, he did not stop trying to fight. He did not stop trying to move forward. But Algeo was just he has such a looseness and a creativity in there that we see a lot of people try to have in the cage in various organizations, not just the UFC, all over the place. And they don't look like they're nearly as comfortable as how Bill Algeo tends to conform himself in the octagon. And it's really fun to watch him fight. He like I said, he's very creative. And I think he really confused, I forgot this boy's name already, Alexander Hernandez in there a little bit. I think Alexander Hernandez ended up waiting a little bit too much. Didn't really end up getting off first a lot of the time. When he did, Algeo's defense I thought was on point for the most part. And he got cracked quite a bit in that fight. So I thought it was a beautiful, again, performance from Bill Algeo. I think we kind of thought that this was going to happen, especially after the Billy Quarantillo fight. But I think it was even more masterful than that fight was.
Mark, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this was a good scrap. I enjoyed watching this fight. I honestly, I feel like Bill Algeo won it with his defense. You know, Hernandez was playing his typical walk-him-down game. His cardio did hold up, so props to him for that. The 1-2 still looked really powerful from him, as it always does, but he struggled with the awkwardness of Bill Algeo, and Omar kind of touched on it too. Like, he had big movements, a lot of leaning, very free in there. He was constantly changing stances. Even as Alex was throwing, he would change his stance, like defensively, to avoid the shots. And Hernandez had a hard time finding him for the most part. And then even when he did, Bill was doing such a good job of leaning with the shots to take away some of the impact. So I really feel like his defense was kind of the key. And, of course, he did work offensively, too. He was able to lean on the reach a bit, landed that big left in the second to put Hernandez down for a moment. And really, he was just able to rack up more points because he made sure Alex missed more than he landed. So a good, tough fight. I didn't think Hernandez looked bad. He just got beat. Algeo was the better man in there. He fought a composed veteran-type fight, and he earned that W.
Yeah, I wish that Alexander Hernandez would do something a little bit different with the way that his fight stance is. I feel like he's too open, man. I really do. And I feel like it's one of those things where it's not allowing him to move properly when he's actually trying to get in there, right? Now, Algeo is moving all over the place. He's going from side to side, doing all kinds of shit. And Alexander Hernandez didn't seem like he was really able to follow him, didn't seem like he was really able to do what he needed to do to get an advantageous position while those things were going on. And it looks like because he didn't really have the movement to do it. I just felt like had he closed that gap a little bit in his stance, I think he would have been able to move a little bit better in there with Algeo. But otherwise, they just let Algeo kind of dance around for a lot of that fight.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that take.
Let's talk about what could be next at featherweight for Bill Algeo. Mark?
He mentioned Billy Q, who obviously beat Hernandez recently himself, and honestly, I'm here for it. They're almost mirror image fighters in a lot of ways, and whoever did win that matchup, I think, would really propel himself forward into a shot against a solid ranked opponent. So, yeah, I say book that.
Omar, any other ideas?
Yeah, I kind of want that, if we're being wholly honest. That is a crazy fight. I'm extremely interested to see what that pace looks like. I know we probably can't have a 5-round fight, but how amazing could a 5-round fight actually be? If that
yeah, I'd be down for sure.
But yeah, that's a great fight with Billy Q.
What's next for Hernandez, man? Mark, what do you think could be next for him? Is he staying at featherweight? Is he going back up to lightweight? You think he's going to be out of the UFC at some point? He's been so up and down since his loss to Cowboy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think we're at an out of it point yet. I mean, he just won his last fight against Jim Miller, which is still pretty solid. I matched him up at 45. I honestly didn't think about that maybe he would just give up on this now that he's 0-2 there. So I didn't. I'd have to look for a lightweight opponent. If he stays at 45, the name I was thinking was Hakeem Dawodu. He's another guy like Hernandez who seems to have a lot of talent, who kind of is rotating wins and losses, just can't seem to fully put together what it looks like he has, which is Hernandez's same deal. So that's who popped into my head to put them both in there together.
Anybody else, Omar?
I think for me, fighting Fernando Padilla could be interesting. I think his striking is a little fun as well. I know he recently is coming off of I don't think he won his last fight, right? He had a little bit of a weird showing, but he looked good in his last couple, or at least the first fight that I saw him in against Julian Erosa. Looked a little weird in his last fight, but I enjoyed the way he fought against Erosa enough that I think another shot, somebody like Alex Hernandez who will stand and bang with him, I think that'd be fun.
You know what I liked? I liked the way you said his name. You said it with a little Spanish. I need a little more of that from you on this show, okay?
Well, there's like 5 Spanish dudes every now and again that we get to talk about, so...
I want to speak every language.
That'd be nice.
Not enough time. Okay, let's jump into our lightning round. Here we go, lightning round, where I challenge Mark and Omar to give me their quickest takes, a phrase perhaps. Here we go. In the women's strawweight division, the featured bout on the preliminary card of this UFC fight night. In the women's strawweight division, Karolina Kowalkiewicz defeated Diana Belbita by unanimous decision. Mark, go first.
This one was what it was billed to be. Both of these women went in there ready to scrap. They both had moments, but the technique of Karolina, I think, was just crisper and cleaner than that of Belbita, and that's kind of what shone through. Belbita was, putting her head down and trying to get inside, but Karolina did a great job just to pick her apart, counter when she stepped in, plus the grappling that we did see generally went her way. Belbita did have a couple moments there too, but all in all, it was just another well-rounded showing from Karolina, and she makes it 4 in a row.
Omar.
Yeah, dude, I was really happy for her, man. She's been on a nice little run here. She had to definitely get into a scrap with Belbita, but she definitely was the better fighter in there. I thought by the end of that fight, she had done more damage. She was landing a lot more than Belbita was. Belbita kind of seemed like she was just a step behind for a good majority of that fight. So it was a great performance, man. Super happy for Karolina. Hope that win streak continues.
Okay. Flyweight division, Nate Maness defeats Mateus Mendonça. How do you say it, Mendonça?
Mendonça.
I think they don't say the I think they say Mendonça.
Mendonça.
By TKO in the very first round. Omar, go.
Yeah, let's stop trying to go for submissions while you're getting punched in the fucking face. Just let's not do it anymore. It doesn't work. It continues to not work. And like I feel like there's a toughness that guys feel like they look like they have when they're just trying to get a submission they're not going to get while getting like completely pummeled from one direction or the other. It's just not smart. And it caught up to him, and he now has a TKO loss because he couldn't just get his ass up off the floor and continue to fight. So there we go.
All right, Mark.
I have said it before. I will say it again. I will echo Omar. Extended leg hunting in modern MMA is a dead man's decision. Guys are too good now. They're too well-rounded. And Nate Maness showed it again. And Mendonce ate a ton of shots that he didn't need to be eating for the sake of hunting for the legs of Maness. And he paid for it. And he eventually got his head dribbled off the canvas. And I don't know why guys keep doing this. We are past it. The game has evolved past this being an option. And for Maness, a fantastic, calm, poised performance from him and a good win.
I will never get the image of Ryan Hall out of my head when he lost to fucking help me. I'm brain farting.
Taporia?
Yes. God damn it.
I had to think for a second.
Where were you?
Yeah.
All right.
You can go for it, but it needs to be like I am going to count to 7 in my head.
Not even.
And if this shit hasn't happened, I got to get out of this spot.
Yeah,
Dude, count to 3.
but Mendonce was also doing it seemingly during an opportunity that wasn't an opportunity. He just because he had the leg, he was like, I'm just gonna keep tweaking it and hope something breaks or something. It was a weird approach to the situation, if we're being honest.
Okay, moving on. In the spirit of lightning, in the women's strawweight division, Vanessa Demopoulos gets back of the win column with her unanimous decision victory over Kanako Murata. Omar, go first.
So I know we're supposed to be lightening this, but I'm actually really curious to hear what Mark has to say about this fight, because the second round is a real motherfucker in this fight, and it really comes down to whether you think Vanessa Demopoulos did enough damage and threw up enough submission attempts in that second round to win it over the control and the occasional heavy strike thrown by Murata in the second round. The third round, I thought Murata took it a little bit. I feel like she took the round a little bit more seriously and definitely threw a lot more strikes in there. Made that third round, I think, a lot clearer for herself. But that second round was rough, man. I don't even know which way I really went.
Okay, Mark. What do you think?
I like Vanessa Demopoulos' mentality. I like her attitude and her outlook. I liked the way in this fight that she fought from bottom and tried to stay active. She didn't win this fight. Everyone agrees Murata won round 3, obviously. Yeah. But she also won round 2. I get it. Vanessa was landing some shots from the bottom, but it's not as if Murata was doing nothing. I thought it was pretty clear that she won round 2. And I also thought round 1 was really close. I scored it by a hair for Demopoulos, but even that was close. So I don't know. I didn't love this decision. Can't speak. I can't imagine that Murata is too thrilled about it. But hey, Vanessa gets another one.
Okay, 2 more. In the bantamweight division, Aori Kilong defeats Johnny Munoz Jr. by UD. All 3 judges, 29-28 for Kilong. Mark, go first.
Also, I meant to say a second ago that something like 80% of MMA decisions had it for Murata. And so did every expert listed except like 1, I think it was. So factor that in. As for Aori Kilong and Munoz, we knew exactly what this one was going to be, which was the grappling of Munoz against the striking of Aori Kilong. But that's not necessarily what we got. You know, the difference in this fight really ended up being the fact that Aori Kilong was able to do well in the grappling. You know, he dropped round 1 for sure and had Munoz on his back, and it was like, he's struggling here as expected. But round 2, he really did well to defend takedowns, and then he even got his own. He worked from top. And round 3, finally, he was able to have some space and work on his strikes, but then he even ended up on top once again and made sure he closed out the decision that way. So good little progression we saw from him in this fight, and a needed W.
Yeah, man. Omar? I
actually really enjoyed this fight. I really like the striking from Aori Kilong,
I think they say.
Kilong. I really love his striking, man. His striking is pretty crisp. I feel like he's got a Muay Thai base from what it seems like. Obviously, yes, he has to modify it to make sure he doesn't get his ass taken down to the ground, but it seems like that's the base that he has, and he looks really good in there. I thought I thought the fight was pretty clear to me. Right, the first round I thought was pretty easy to score for what's homeboy's name, Johnny Munoz. But the last 2 rounds I thought were pretty clear for Aoki Long, and he did so much damage in that round. Especially, and like Mark said, he did well in the grappling. Reversed a few positions, got on top from bottom position a few times. I thought he did really well. So I thought it was a good fight from Aoki Long and a good showing of his grappling for somebody who I think who's known to be a striker.
Okay, last one. Women's flyweight division. JJ Aldrich gets the win over Montana De La Rosa by UD. Omar, do it.
Aldrich looked good, man. Her striking was pretty crisp. Her distance while she was striking was also really nice as well. She wasn't overextending. She was staying in the same spot, getting De La Rosa at the end of her strikes, right? Not crowding her punches. I thought she looked really, really good, to be honest. It wasn't the most exciting fight in the world, but just looking at the sequences as they were, I thought Aldrich had some really nice technique in that fight.
Mark, take us home.
Yeah, I was interested to see who looked to wrestle here, and if they did, if De La Rosa could kind of lean on her grappling. And instead we got 15 minutes of a striking contest. No one really did. And going in, I would have expected JJ to win a striking contest. So I'm surprised mostly that there wasn't more of an effort from Montana to initiate that grappling. But, yeah, from the Aldrich side, she was just the better boxer. She was quicker. She hit harder. She had Montana frozen with her feints numerous times and clearly won the exchanges. So, yeah, good one for her.
All right, boys, that does it for this week's lightning round and this week's recap of UFC Fight Night Dawson versus Green. To put a bow on this, let's